Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. I have another Meals of the Week video for you guys. So the very first meal we are going to make, we are going to use up some of our sweet and sour sauce that we canned together. I can leave the video linked for you guys. I was really excited to finally get to try this. I had envisioned this meal in my mind, and so I really wanted to try it. So what I'm doing here is just taking some turkey breasts. I'm cutting them into 1-inch cubes. I think I have about 1.5 pounds of turkey breasts, and then in a little cake pan I'm going to add half a cup of cornstarch, 1 teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of black pepper. I'm just going to whisk that all together, and then in another pie plate I'm going to take 3 large eggs and just whisk those together. So my idea was to kind of bread this and then put it in the air fryer and have it like a breaded chicken. It didn't work out the way I envisioned it. I should have used flour. The original recipe that I was kind of going off of actually suggested doing this in a frying pan and frying it and then baking it, but I kind of wanted to experiment and trying to do it an easier way, but it didn't end up actually working very well. So we're gonna bread these turkey breasts. We're gonna take each individual breast, just dodge it in the cornstarch mix, and then throw it into the egg wash, and then put it into the air fryer. So the second time I went and did the second batch, because this air fryer is really small, so you kind of have to do a lot of batches to get all of your meat cooked, I actually double breaded it. So I put it in the cornstarch, threw it in the egg wash, and then back into the cornstarch. The breading kind of sticked a little bit better. So I have my air fryer preheated at 375, and I'm going to air fry these for 9 minutes. In between the 9 minutes, I'm gonna come and flip them. We're gonna spray it with a little bit of avocado oil and just put it back in for the remaining of the time. So I have a medium skillet, and what I'm doing is just adding a little bit more avocado oil to that, and then adding the already cooked turkey breasts in here. And we're taking that jar of our sweet and sour sauce and just pouring it over top. All as we want to do here, because all the components are already pre-cooked, we just want to heat it up. And then I made some rice on the side and then put the sweet and sour sauce, and we had some edamame beans with this. This recipe was amazing. Steven even said he loves this sauce, so I am really glad that we made it, and I'm definitely going to be actually jarring up a little bit more of it because it turned out great. Next meal, we are going to make a ground beef country casserole. I believe I've actually made this one with you guys before, but it's been a while, and I have been so busy with canning projects that I really needed an easy meal to do this night. This meal was perfect. So I'm taking a pound of ground beef there and just getting it all chopped up. I love that little chopper. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of black pepper. We're going to get all of this ground beef ground up. While I have this browning here, I am going to get a pot of noodles cooking on the other burner. The recipe actually suggests you use an egg noodle. I didn't have any egg noodles available, so I just used this noodle. Use whatever you have available. The smaller the better. I wouldn't use a really big pasta in this. I have a 9x13 dish, and I'm just spraying it there with a little bit of avocado oil. So once your pasta is done, you're just going to drain it, rinse it off a little bit, and then add it to a large mixing bowl. You're going to add your ground beef mixture and then a can of condensed tomato soup. This was actually some tomato soup that we had made up, so I had some in my fridge I needed to get used. And then 1 can of golden mushroom soup. I made my own here, and the recipe states that it is very important that you use golden mushroom soup. She said it is like a tomato-based mushroom soup, so when I was making my soup mix there, I just added a little bit of that tomato soup just to kind of make it like that. But she says it's very important to use that. Then you want to add 1 cup of whole milk, 2 tablespoons of diced minced onion. I just used a granulated onion, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, half a cup of Parmesan cheese, and then you want to stir that all up until everything's incorporated. And then you're going to pour that into your greased 9x13 pan. We have the oven preheated at 350 degrees, so we're going to cover this up and we are going to cook this for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, you're going to come and you're going to put 1 cup of shredded cheese over top of that, and then plop that back in the oven for another 5 minutes uncovered. I put it back in for about another 10 minutes because the cheese wasn't melting good enough. And then after that, it is all done. Easy peasy recipe. I really like this recipe. It's a really quick go-to recipe. Like I always state in my other videos, I will leave the recipes that I have available for you guys down in the video description. For the next meal, I wanted to do something kind of light and refreshing. I found this recipe on Instagram and I thought I would give it a try. It looked really, really good. It is called a crispy Parmesan artichoke salad. So I took a 14-ounce jar of artichoke hearts and just rinsed them off and made sure they were good and patted dry. And then to a mixing bowl, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Then I'm going to add those dried artichoke hearts in and just make sure they're good and well coated. Then to that bowl, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of avocado oil, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. You're going to make sure that everything is coated. Then you're going to take a lined baking sheet. It's very important to use lined because these do make kind of a mess. And you're going to put them onto the baking sheet. I have my oven preheated at 425 degrees. Then you're going to take some freshly grated Parmesan and cover them with the Parmesan. I definitely recommend using a freshly grated Parmesan. I don't think the powdered version would work very well for this. So once you get them all topped with that Parmesan, you're going to put them in the oven for about 28 minutes, depending on how crispy you want them. I'm getting a can of cannelloni beans just rinsed off really well there. Now this salad would have been absolutely amazing had I had fresh salad greens to use in it, but we can't grow them right now. It's just too hot here. So I am using some of my Malabar spinach. It wasn't the best option that I had available. Salad greens would have made this taste so much more refreshing. So I'm just getting my spinach kind of roughly chopped there, and then we'll put it into that big mixing bowl there. And then I don't have everything that the recipe called for, so I just kind of was using what I had available. The recipe actually suggests to use a roasted red pepper. So I'm gonna get a English cucumber chopped up. I added my cannelloni beans, and one thing that I kind of improvised is I used cherry tomatoes, and instead of those roasted red peppers, I actually used some fresh red pepper. So halfway through the cooking of those Parmesan pieces, you want to come and flip them so that they can get crispy on all sides. We're going to get the dressing started now. So I used 2 tablespoons of avocado oil, and I used 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. This recipe actually calls for 1 lemon juiced and the zest of 1 lemon. I didn't have any fresh lemon, so I improvised with the lemon juice. Again, fresh lemon would have made this recipe so much better. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of capers and chop them up, add them to the bowl, 1 clove of garlic minced, 2 teaspoons of maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of brown or Dijon mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and then 2 to 3 tablespoons of that freshly grated Parmesan, and you are just going to whisk them all together. You're going to get those artichoke crisps out of the oven and just make sure they're good and crispy. Then you're going to top the salad with a little bit of chopped parsley and just stir in that salad dressing and just make sure that everything is really good and coated. Then once everything is stirred together, you're going to top it with those artichoke Parmesan crisps. And then another thing she does mention is it's really good if you top it with an additional freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and you could also put some lemon zest, and she even suggests putting some honey on it. I really enjoyed this meal. It was a really nice, refreshing salad. I'm definitely going to be making this again once we have our lettuce greens in season. The next meal, I'm going to make a little bit of a sweet treat. I was craving these cookies. I found them on Pinterest and they looked way too good not to try. They are a soft maple cookie with brown butter frosting. Sounds delicious, had to try it. So I'm taking a 1/4 cup of room temperature butter and mixing it with 3/4 cup of brown sugar, and we're just going to mix it until it is fluffy. Then you are going to add 1 egg and mix it. And then you're going to mix in a 1/4 cup of sour cream. Now it does mention to have the sour cream at room temperature. I didn't have it at room temperature, but it seemed to work perfectly fine. And then you're gonna beat the sour cream in, and then you're gonna stop. There's a lot of stopping and mixing with this recipe. And then you are going to put in a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. It does mention to make sure you are using the real stuff because it really does aid to that maple flavoring. And then once you get that all good and mixed together, in a separate mixing bowl, you are going to add a 1/4 cup of flour. I am just using an unbleached all-purpose flour for this. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. It does say whisk it with a metal whisk and then add it to your wet ingredients. Then you want to mix it with the wet ingredients until it is just incorporated. It really does stress not to over mix this. I have my oven also preheated at 350 degrees. So on a lined cookie sheet, you are going to take them. It does suggest to use a cookie scoop or a large spoon, and you are just going to put them onto your lined baking sheet. Now these do spread quite a bit. You're going to bake them for about 10 to 12 minutes depending on your oven temperature. Once the cookies are nice and golden brown along the edges, that's how you know they are done. You're going to leave them on the baking sheet for about 5 minutes, and then you're going to transfer them to a wire cooling rack. Once they are completely cooled, then you are going to get your frosting started. You don't necessarily have to frost them. I actually found that this frosting was a little bit too sweet and it overpowered the cookie. Next time I make them, I'm not going to make the icing, but I wanted to give them a try as the recipe kind of had it written. So you're going to take a 1/4 cup of butter and you are just going to brown it on the stovetop, and then to a mixing bowl you're going to add 2 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of milk. You can use heavy cream also, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You're going to whisk it together. I actually had to come in and add additional 2 tablespoons of milk because it was a little bit too thick. Oh, and also you're going to add that butter, that browned butter in there as well. I found that this icing sugar was just a little bit too overpowering on the cookie. It probably would have been nice if it was less sweet, but overall, definitely love these cookies, and I am really glad that we gave them a try. For the next meal, I'm going to make one of my favorite meals. It is buttered chicken. Now, the recipe that I have has some really wonky measurements because I actually went in and tweaked it so that it could accommodate for a serving for 4 people. So don't mind the weird number measurements. I have left it linked for you guys if you want to give it a try. The actual linked recipe doesn't have as weird of measurements because I think it's geared for 6 people. So I took 2 chicken breasts, about a pound of chicken breasts, and cut them up into 1-inch cubes. And then I added 0.4 cups of plain kefir. It calls for yogurt, but I didn't have it, so I used my kefir. Then you're going to add 1.2 tablespoons of minced garlic, 0.8 tablespoons of a minced ginger, or finely grated, which is what I did, 1.6 teaspoons of garam masala, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, 0.8 teaspoons of turmeric, 0.8 teaspoons of cumin, 0.8 teaspoons of chili powder, and 0.8 teaspoons of salt. You're going to mix that all together and leave it in your fridge. It says for 30 minutes up to an hour, and you can even do it overnight. Once everything is good and marinated, you're going to put some oil into a skillet and you're going to lightly cook these chicken breasts on all sides. So it says don't overcook them, 3 minutes per side, flip, and then set them aside. So in that skillet, I know it looks like there's a lot of brown bits in there, but it actually does end up coming up, so I wasn't too concerned with it. You're going to take about 1.6 teaspoons of ghee or butter, you can use also, and then you're going to take 0.8 large onions sliced or chopped. I just used a medium onion and added it all in. I normally don't cook with onion pieces, but you'll see why I was able to do it. And then you're going to add 1.2 tablespoons of garlic, 0.8 teaspoons or tablespoons, sorry, of ginger, minced or grated, and then you're going to stir that all up until it becomes fragrant. Once everything is kind of translucent and good and fragrant, you're going to add 1.2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 1.2 teaspoons of garam masala, and 0.8 teaspoons of ground coriander. And then again, stir it for about 30 seconds until it gets that fragrancy coming in. And then you're gonna add 11.2 ounces of crushed tomatoes. Didn't have that, so I just added a pint-sized jar of my diced tomatoes. And you see there, everything is coming up off of the pan, which is perfect. So you are going to stir this until it is a nice brown color. And you're going to add in 0.8 teaspoons of red chili powder and 1 teaspoon of salt. Let that cook for, it says until it thickens up a little bit. I was just trying to get the brown bits off the bottom. Once everything is good and cooked through, you are going to add it to a blender. This is why I'm able to use onions, because I'm blending them up and you can't see that, like you can't taste the texture of them. That's the reason I don't cook with onions, is because Steven doesn't like the texture of onions. So if I can blend them, I can get away with using them. So we put it in the blender until it was all blended up. You're gonna add that back to your skillet, and then you are going to stir in 0.8 cups of heavy cream. I used my raw dairy milk, which is a very, very thick whole milk. So if you don't have cream, milk will definitely replace that. You could also even use like a coconut cream in this as well. And then you're going to add 0.8 tablespoons of sugar and then 0.4 teaspoons, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, so I'm just going to leave it on the screen. You're going to add that to it and just stir that until it's good and incorporated, and then you are going to add your chicken back to this mixture with all of the juices. And then you're going to cook that for an additional 8 to 10 minutes until that chicken is cooked through and the sauce is thick and bubbly. I had made some sourdough naan to go with that, and so I just put that in a bowl. This I've also made with rice and is really delicious over top of rice, but I just thought since we had the naan, I didn't need to have the additional rice. So I just put this in a bowl and we just kind of dipped the naan in it. It was so delicious. This is one of my favorite meals. So this is the last meal on the video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope I gave you a little bit of meal inspiration for the upcoming week. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day or night whenever you are watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.